Greetings, lords and ladies. Run the test this morning. Seems to be working fine. Judah's on his way. We'll get started in a few minutes here. This morning's essay, thought for the week, is called Use as Directed. I'll put it in chat here in a minute, the link to it. Oh, been a good week. An actually good week, yeah.
Ciao.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing mediocre.
Mediocre. Check. Okay, I think we're good.
We good?
I think so. Good morning, Lauren. Lauren from Facebook, Esparza.
Ah, Lauren, Lolo. I told her about this.
Oh, well, brace yourself, Lauren. Have you ever sat through one of these? I don't think anyone sat through one. I think we have 5 people who sat through an entire episode live.
A whole thing?
Yeah, probably 5, maybe 7. I think most people tuned in on Facebook. They're like, "What is he talking about?" Ford, it's a Saturday morning. The guys I work with are like, "Hey, I saw some of your podcasts the other day." It's like, some of them. I think they're like 10 seconds in. They're like, "No, I get enough of this guy at work. It's time for a break."
What are we talking about this morning?
She said, I think I sat through part of one. Yeah, today's essay is called Use as Directed, picking up on thoughts on Philip K. Dick's Ubik here while people are...
Philip K. Dick? Wow.
Yeah, you ever heard of him? I haven't never talked about him before. When am I going to get off of that, Philip K. Dick? All right. All right. So there's this one part I was going to mention. It kind of helps because last week we were asking, is it Ubik, right?
Yeah.
And he actually addresses that in the story because there's a product that masquerades as Ubik.
Ooh.
And it's not really the real thing. So it's like counterfeit.
Counterfeit Ubik.
Yes. Okay, here it is. So they've told him, good morning, Govind. How you doing this morning? They told him that if he would use this Ubik spray stuff, that if he sprayed it on him, this will help keep him alive. So they send him this box, and he's supposed to have this Ubik spray in there. But he opens up the box, and within the box lay 2 letters in a square package wrapped in brown paper, sealed with brown tape, purple 3-cent stamps, blah, blah, blah. But he realized suddenly the package is the wrong shape for a spray can. It's not tall enough. Fear touched him. What if it was not a free sample of Ubik? It had to be. It just had to be. Otherwise, Al all over again. So Al is one of the people that died because they didn't have Ubik. So he opened up the package, and inside is a pasteboard container within that says Ubik liver and kidney balm. Inside the container, he found a blue glass jar with a large lid. The label read, "Directions for use. This unique analgesic formula, developed over a period of 40 years by Dr. Edward Sunderbar, is guaranteed to end forever annoying getting up at night. You will sleep peacefully for the first time and with superlative comfort. Merely dissolve a teaspoonful of Ubik liver and kidney balm in a glass of warm water and drink immediately, 1/2 hour before retiring. If pain or irritation persists, increase dosage to 1 tablespoonful. Do not give to children. Contains processed oleander leaves, saltpeter, oil of peppermint, N-acetyl P-aminophenol, zinc oxide charcoal, cobalt chloride, caffeine, extract of digitalis, steroids in trace amounts, sodium citrate, ascorbic acid, artificial coloring and flavoring. Ubic liver and kidney balm is potent and effective if handled as per instructions. Inflammable, use rubber gloves. Do not allow to get in eyes. Do not splash on skin. Do not inhale over long periods of time. Warning, prolonged or excessive use may result in habituation. So, when he starts looking at the ingredients, he's like, wait a minute, this has digitalis in it. This will kill me. And so he realizes that this is like a trick with those ingredients that ought to kill me fairly thoroughly. So, and it happens again. He gets another thing of Ubic, like an elixir or something like that. And then on the instructions, it's like, elixir of Ubic, guaranteed to restore lost manliness and to banish vapors of all known kinds as well as to relieve reproductive complaints in both men and women. A beneficent aid to mankind when sedulously employed as indicated. And in smaller type, a further inscription, he had to squint in order to read the smudged, minute script. Don't do it, Joe. There's another way. Keep trying. You'll find it. Lots of luck. So, he keeps stumbling across false Ubics, basically, counterfeit examples of something that's going to get him outside of the matrix, so to speak. So it'd be like if, it's like a facsimile, Lawrence Fishburne giving you a facsimile red pill, right? Like, take that. But how do you know it's the real Morpheus? How do you know it's the real red pill? So that's what keeps happening to him. And the crazy thing is, I mentioned this in the essay, but the crazy thing in this is that Dick wrote this before Matrix, before Silent Hill, before Inception. There's an episode of Star Trek Next Generation in which Beverly Crusher gets stuck in this warp bubble, and like the universe starts like disappearing. All these characters disappear. And so by the end of it, it's just her and Picard on the Enterprise. And it's like everyone just keeps disappearing. And like, you never had a son, Beverly. What are you talking about? So that's kind of what, so many of these things have borrowed from Ubik. It's insane. And
It's weird. I've never heard of Ubik before, though. Before this podcast.
Yeah, it's a book that now I've got to catch up with his other. So he did a trilogy called I can't remember what it's called, but it's got Valis is one of the titles. Then there's something like the Transfiguration is something Palmer Eldritch or something. I can't remember. But I got to check out with those because this book is one that I feel like you could read like once a year, and because it's really hard. Like I have a hard time remembering what happens in it because it's so weird. Like he just keeps pulling the rug out from underneath you. It's not straightforward. Like in the Matrix, you kind of, even though they're going back and forth between real world and Matrix world, like you are oriented. There's no orientation in this book because you're from the perspective of the person being deceived. So, do you ever watch the X-Files? And there was this one episode where they were stuck this mushroom, like there was this underground giant mushroom that made them trip. And they kept waking up thinking that they were out of the mushroom.
Oh, I think I do remember
that. Yeah. So it's like that. And there's episodes of Star Trek like that. There's one with Will Riker called Frame of Mind where he was stuck in this play. And he was like in this mental asylum. And he keeps getting out of it, but he's never actually out of it. Mm-hmm. So there's all those kind of things are embedded in Ubik. And again, it just predates all of those. It's almost like everyone's just riffing off of what Dick did. And so it's even though it's a small book, it's like there are 15 movies in here. It's like one paragraph, you could write I feel like you could take it and make it a whole high concept Netflix show, just one paragraph because he really did such a good job of world creation,
Mm-hmm. Do you think the reason it hasn't become ubiquitous?
Oh, that's true. That's really what it is. That's what it means, ubic. I mean, it's kind of a play on words, right?
Yeah. But do you think the reason it hasn't become more famous or popular is because it's so convoluted and hard to understand?
Yeah, I don't think it's real mainstream. The thing that's cool about Philip K. Dick though is there's a certain, even though stuff is so it's kind of oppressive and suffocating.
Yeah.
It's all about entropy and decay,
Yeah.
but still he manages to have this kind of whimsical, like tongue-in-cheek thing. So there's one part I'd forgotten. So everything once he gets stuck in this like hell space or whatever, this like virtual reality hellscape,
Mm-hmm.
he I guess you would call it psychological reality. He's everything charges him for everything. So like he's to even get cream for the cream and sugar for his coffee. It's like the creamer dispenser is like, you need to add 3 more post creds, please. And so then he's like, just give me a loan. And so he has to like haggle with this little machine. Is like, we've contacted your bank and know that your loan isn't good. And so he does this like this bargaining thing with these machines. And there's one time he's trying to open a door, and I'd totally forgotten that someone quoted this when I was looking up reviews. It's just all of consumer dystopia in a moment where he's taking the door apart because it won't open, and it's like, and the door talks to him and says, "Sir, you're not going to get away with this. We're going to be fining you for this." It's like the door is actually having a human interaction with him. It's hilarious, man. It's so, but the thing at the time, I bet people read it and were like, "Man, this guy's a psychopath." No, he was a prophet, because all that is happening. Now we have like Google Home talking to us like, all the time, monitoring our conversations. We are the product. All right. Okay, all that to say. So that was a little introduction. I'll go ahead and read the. Let me get my Periscope up and running just to see if there's anybody in there.
So the challenge is, how do we make Philip K. Dick more? I guess it's my challenge to sort of how do I make it when in our conversations? How can I sort of draw out a little bit more, bite-sized pieces, palatable pieces that the masses can understand?
I think Ubik really could be adapted at this point, because everyone has the kind of common understanding of things like The Matrix.
Yeah.
I mentioned Cowboy Bebop's Scratch in this one because that is basically Ubik, but I mean a little bit different play on it. Silent Hill, it makes me think a lot of Silent Hill, where Silent Hill is more of the spiritual element, I guess. But you could interpret Silent Hill psychologically, like it's a psychological horror that people are living inside her brain, And so that's basically what's happening in Ubik. You're living in this little a-hole brat's brain, and he's just basically like pulling, like a malevolent Sid character from Toy Story that just likes to destroy toys, and so he's doing that with people's psyches. So I think all the vernacular is established. You think about Inception, just so many of these films in which there's I don't know, like some sort of psychological or virtual reality dream world that people know that they're not supposed to be in and are trying to get out. So it seems like you could adapt Ubik now. I feel like it's something that like you could get. I don't feel like Netflix could do it. I feel like HBO could do it. I feel like BBC, some of those period piece drama stuff, like they might be able to do it. I mean, really, I would have to be able to do it. Let's be real. Come on. But yeah, you need a kind of whimsical tongue-in-cheek thing. Have you seen any of the Philip K. Dick adaptations that show the Electric Dreams or whatever?
No.
Amazon Prime. Yeah, I really should, just to see if they got it.
Yeah.
If they get his style, because his style does have this tragic comedy sort of thing. There's always a little bit of tongue-in-cheek to his stuff. He's not so self-serious that it's not all just nihilism. There's something. I think ultimately he believed that good was going to win somehow. He just didn't know how.
Well, what present day movie, or not present day, but what movie, Philip K. Dick adaptation, have you? You said Minority Report was one of your favorites, right?
I like, as far as a mainstream, it doesn't really, that's not one of his best short stories. I think it's a novella or something like that. But I thought Spielberg did fine. Like, as far as an action, yeah, you want to talk about a mainstream pop version of a Philip K. Dick. Now, I thought that was a good adaptation. I don't have any problem with it. Like, it's a show don't tell, showing through action. It doesn't maybe get all the nuances of Dick's, I analysis of human technoculture and society's screw ups. But
what about Blade Runner? Was that?
Yeah,
was that...
I think both of them are good. But I think in a previous essay, I said that they're probably sexier versions of it. How about Total Recall 1990? I haven't seen it since the original. I'd like to go back. That's a good one. Frown knows. I should probably go back and
the new
watch.
Total
No,
Recall?
1990, the Schwarzenegger version. It's so weird that honestly, I think they get some of it because again, Total Recall and Minority Report are not Philip K. Dick's best works. They are much more mainstream and a little more action oriented, I guess. But they both have something interesting to say. It'll be interesting to go back and check Schwarzenegger's version because I think it was it's kind of it's a weird movie, man. I think
it's kind of cartoony. I mean, I've seen it. It's one of Chan and I. We always quote it.
I think tonally it's kind of in the ballpark, to be honest, because it is weird.
Did you see the new one?
I did not.
It was.
I think it's probably too self-serious, or trying to be too slick or something. Because Dick just does not come across as slick. Yeah, Dova Keen says that Total Recall is hilariously good. Yeah, I think that's one worth going back and checking out. It is just odd that a blockbuster could be that weird. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens in that movie. As far as a movie that I think gets at, honestly, a movie that I feel like gets at Philip K. Dick a bit, even though it's not Dick, is Brazil. Terrence Gilliam. What's his name?
Gilliam.
Yeah, so that movie, when I watched it, I was not prepared for that. I had no idea what I was getting into. That's like 1984 Brave New World, but through this sort of whimsical, like, I don't even know. It's so weird. It's good. Like that movie, I feel like gets at a little bit of the Philip K. Dick tone and style. Yeah, Terry Gilliam. All right, I'll go ahead and read this week's thought for the week. It's called Use as Directed. Let me throw this in chat. Hold on one second. I'll throw this to everyone in the Restream chat. So you can check it out there. Here, Periscope. For the one or so people in Periscope. Here's the script for this week's essay.
Follow along in your compendium.
Okay. Oh, and Facebook people, I guess just go over to, if you're there, go over to Twitch and you can see the...
I'll post it.
Okay, thank you. All right, here we go. In last week's episode, I discussed Philip K. Dick's sci-fi fever dream, Ubik. In the book, the characters are caught in a collapsing psychic reality hellscape controlled by a malevolent, spoiled brat. If you rolled up Inception and The Matrix and stuffed them into the plot of the first Silent Hill, in which a burned victim's hellish psyche leaks into the real world, you would get a pretty good idea of what Ubik is all about. Of course, the truly remarkable thing about Philip K. Dick is that he preempted all of these high-concept ideas and instead of making them palatable for mainstream action-adventure audiences, decided to cram them all into one thin book. As the psychic reality collapses into decay and the characters await their inevitable doom, salvation presents itself in the form of a consumer product, Ubik, which primarily comes in a spray can that, when sprayed over a human in the death rattle of the last phase of decay, is revitalized. Last week, Judah and I ruminated on the question, is it Ubik? Is it something that is going to preserve life, or is the very concept of Ubik a solipsistic way to remain enslaved to a half-life purgatory? Is God incarnating as a consumer good, or is the devil titrating the dose of transcendence to give you just enough of the good stuff to keep you in thrall. Interestingly, while perusing the book this week, I stumbled upon a passage that I had forgotten in which our protagonist, Joe Chip, comes across Ubic kidney and liver balm. It takes Joe quite some time to find Ubic in its authentic form. Counterfeit Ubics come at him in the form of snake oil that contains deadly substances like digitalis and cobalt chloride. Nothing is certain. You have to use Ubic as directed, but if you use a counterfeit Ubic as directed, it could be lethal. Why the confusion? Why can't salvation just materialize? Why is a product even necessary? Why all this trouble? Why all this noise? When a system or a society is corrupted by active malevolence and solipsistic stagnation, if you are trying to convey information to someone who wants to get out of that system, how can you get the information through to them without being detected by the active malevolent intelligence? You encrypt your message in noise. You speak the language of solipsism. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. In our world of commodified consumption, the Word becomes capital good and spreads like leaven in the lump of disposable entropy. You do not wake up from a corporate dream by mere willpower, but by beating the malevolent gatekeepers at their own game. The villain in Ubic is a bratty kid named Jory who gets a morbid pleasure from psychically tormenting people stuck in life support machines in his vicinity. I've noticed this character pop up again and again in our popular fiction. In the Cowboy Bebop episode Scratch, a character very reminiscent of Jory initiates a death cult utilizing technology to entrance the universe with an imaginary religious figure, again, all while being comatose on life support. In Brandon Sanderson's teen superhero series The Reckoners, the villain is an emo teen who has stumbled into a superpower that throws all of human life into turmoil. In Final Fantasy VI, Kefka is a fastidious ruler who uses magic as a get-power quick scheme, a rock star jester turned prince of the powers of the air. All of these young symbols of existential angst share a similar body type and psychological character. Spoiled, petulant, waifish rebels without causes who use forms of magic to wield power instead of any procedural physical interaction with the material world. The word cool used to describe people who could carry off difficult feats under intense pressure without breaking a sweat, but then the cameras started rolling. Coolness devolved from an accurate description of a gunslinger who stared death in the face with a stoic countenance and a steady hand, not head. Dagnabbit. Steady head. Steady hand. Yeah, but triggered. Coolness devolved from an accurate description of a gunslinger who stared death in the face with a stoic countenance and a steady hand into an ironic, angst-ridden je ne sais quoi, an air, an affectation. James Dean pouting his way through Rebel Without a Cause, Kurt Cobain muttering under his breath at cheerleaders and football players, and now a bunch of incontinent nerds brandishing guns in the marketplace are effete hack poets hiding behind mics, pretending that inane rap songs are kill shots. The system has gone wrong. Every one of these misguided brats is right about that, but you do not end the system by being paid an inflated wage to pout at it. The system will not come tumbling down by mental endeavor, not by podcast, film, cultural icon, or ideological leverage. We take Kefka down and the system he inherited by means of dynamically realized individualism, provident action, coordinated incarnation. I don't want to talk about the solution this week because I'm so far away from working this solution out in my own life at the ground level, but I want to put an emphasis on what the future does not look like, a bratty indifference to reality. The world is fucked up beyond all recognition, but it has always been thus. Stop pretending that life was better when we were raping and pillaging the nomadic tribe around the bend, when we were ruled by Rome or Genghis Khan, when we sacrificed postpartum babies to Moloch, burning in fire, when we burned heretics at the stake, when we sacrificed 10 horses at Dusasvamed, when we ate the brains of our enemies. Consumers as commodities, capitalism is a mess, but it is the system we live in. We cannot pout our way out of it. We cannot nostalgia our way out of it. We cannot legislate our way out of it. We have to use as directed. There are ways to dance through this shitstorm, and dance we must. No neural link is going to magically save us. No, we must move. We must shadowbox the Prince of Darkness. We must wrestle God himself. We have to bleed. We have to sweat. You can't think your way through this one, John. You have to feel it. not just emotionally or through intuition, but physiologically, to feel the pollution in your lungs, to breathe that drywall dust in, to embed those jagged fiberglass insulation particles in our skin, to swim in that raw sewage and runoff, making the Yamuna a fetid cesspool. Our homes are made of the Maltese falcon. Our natural world is reeling from the byproducts of our hackneyed towers of Babel. We have to play by the rules. We have to use as directed and in this solipsistic feedback loop by beating them at their own game. Don't just use Ubik, make Ubik. Are you sick of business as usual? Are you sick of shitty movies and half-assed music? Get down in the thick of it and show them what real coolness looks like, what real drama is made of. They've been tricking us with fool's gold, with snake oil, with Ubik kidney and liver balm. No more titrated doses. It's time to start incrementally imbuing our life, work, science, and art with the real good stuff. No more fractional reserve incarnation. Be the material stuff that dreams are made of. Abhishek says, what's going on? or maybe more accurately, Tone, what's going on? All right.
Man, I like this particular focus on cool. It reminds me of William Gibson. You read it?
Ooh, yeah, Neuromancer.
Well, I was thinking in particular of pattern recognition. I haven't read any of them, but
I haven't read pattern recognition, but I read Neuromancer. I'm interested to hear what you're going to say about Cool and William Gibson.
Well, in pattern recognition, it's all about peddling cool. You know, cool becomes a commodity.
Yeah. That's interesting, because in Neuromancer, which has some really great meditations on artificial intelligence, I feel that the main character is peddled cool. I think there's a lot in that is way too cool and sexy. It's like he's using action movie tropes to kind of, I feel like he was finding his way with that book. But there's a lot of great ideas. The action movie tropes and the sexiness of the whole endeavor are just, I find kind of, I don't know, just too on the nose.
Yeah.
And peddling cool in a sense. That's interesting. I hadn't heard about. Yeah, I think that sounds like a good one. I'd like to add Neil Stevenson to the list for sure. His new one. I heard an interview with him. He read a bit from the book Seven Eves, the new one, and yeah, that guy's very smart. Very smart.
Well, so it recalls to my mind. Is that a phrase? It recalls to my mind a visceral moment from when I was a young whippersnapper. My dad and I had an argument because at some point, all I remember is him looking at me and saying, "What is cool? Do you know what cool is? Nobody knows what cool is." Because I was just using it all the time. I was like, "Dad, that's not cool. I want to be cool." Or I can't remember what it was. He says, "You don't know what cool is. I don't know what cool is. Nobody knows what cool is. Stop trying to be cool." I was like, and I was devastated. I thought,
right.
You don't know what you're talking about, Dad. You're an old man, But and now that I'm getting older, I'm thinking, what the hell is cool? But I never thought about the fact that it came from this, the steady-headed cowboy, the even, that being cool in the face of danger.
So, like in League of Legends terms, so I back, I don't know, 8 years or so ago, I would make fun of people for watching people play video games. I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand Twitch. I didn't understand any of this stuff. I was like, why would you ever watch someone play a video game? And then one of my viewers was like, well, for me, it's kind of like, I don't have time to actually play the game. And it's just like, playing games with friends. Not everyone can play like back in the day when you only had 2 controllers or you're playing a single player game. You take turns and you'd watch and you just shoot the shit while y'all are playing a game. And he's like, and it's also kind of like watching any spectator sport. I mean, he was like, I don't understand sitting there and watching football, but everyone likes that. And then once I played League and got into it, then I got it. Like yesterday, I saw one of the best matches of League of Legends. It was SK Telecom playing against Sandbox Gaming in the first game of their playoff series in Korea, and there was a team fight that just kept going on, and it was like it's this crazy chaotic dance of so many. They're having to keep track of so many things. It's incredible calculus of team coordinated individual mechanics. So. It is very complex, and so when I was like geeking out to it. My coworkers, we were on the way to work. They're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Man, come on, it's League of Legends, man. This is one of the best games I've seen in like 10 years. Like, come on, man." Like whatever, dude. But at the same time, they do the same thing with the one they're playing now. Is that it's the one that starts with an A. It's one of those. It's like the Fortnite.
It's the new one. I don't
Apex Legends. Yeah. So they watch that and they do that. And so anyways, all that to say that when I finally saw Faker make some crazy play, like one of the most iconic moments in League of Legends is Faker versus Ryu, and they're both in Korean gaming at that time, the 5th game they would let you just blind pick. So it ended up being Zed versus Zed mid. And Zed is this assassin character. It's very, like, I still can't play him. You have to keep track of where it's confusing, and I'm just too old. But seeing these two guys, just normal, nerdy looking dudes playing this, and Faker like does this 5D chess thing with Ryu, and everyone thinks Ryu is going to win, and Faker beats him in this moment. And without breaking a sweat. And it's like the whole world shifted of League of Legends in that moment because the SKT was like new on the scene. It was like this big deal. So like Faker became the God King or the Demon King or whatever they want to call him. But he looked cool while doing it. Like it didn't break a sweat. He didn't sit there and do some giant fist pump or But the thing on Twitch, and this is why I'm convinced Americans are not as good at League of Legends, is because we have that, that artificial kind of cool, the kind of cool that makes a big celebration in the end zone, the kind of cool that draws attention to itself. And I think this is why Asians have dominated League, is because they do the thing. Like even there are some Americans. So there's Skara. He was a coach or head player of one of these teams for a while, and there was this one time where he got a pentakill with Katarina, which is not that hard to do. She's kind of they call her face roll champ. You just kind of mash the buttons. And, but still, I mean, it was a big deal. Anybody else would celebrate it. He got the pentakill and just like took a sip of coffee and just kept going on playing. And everyone in the chat's like, now that's cool. And so that's what I mean. That's cool.
That's cool.
That's cool. Because it's not like, it wasn't even like an ostentatious sip. It was just like, all right, let's get back to the game. Like, that's cool. All right. But we have lost that. I mean, I remember a buddy when we were, Chad Dorsey, we were talking about Ocean's 12. And there was the trailer for Ocean's 12 where it's the scene where Matt Damon and Brad Pitt are talking, and Brad Pitt is kind of acting mysterious or whatever. And Matt Damon goes like, ooh. And Chad hated it. Like, I thought it was funny when I saw it, and Chad hated it because he was like, the only reason you think that's cool is because it's Matt Damon and Brad Pitt. Like, this is something that any normal dude would do, but it's just like there's this, again, this je ne sais quoi about the person that's on the silver screen. They're larger than life. They're cool. Like, I have heard some more funny things come out of the mouths of my coworkers this week than anything on the Joe Rogan podcast this week. And I'm cracking up laughing, like they're not larger than life. They're people, but we've put this allure, around the superstar. And it is because of that sort of James Dean, like, look at me, man. I'm cool.
Cool, yeah. The Hollywood cool.
The Hollywood cool. And what is it? It's performative. It's ostentatious. It's
fake.
It's speculative. Yeah, it's fake. It's fractional reserve cool, man. We need gold standard cool. That's what we need.
A gold standard cool. Well, it's interesting because that kind of cool, this kind of like Hollywood Americanized cool. By the way, before I forget, you have to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You just.
I was thinking. The funny thing was when I was driving home from writing this, because I wrote it at Starbucks this morning. Yeah. So I was driving back home and I was like, this is the type of cool I'm talking about. It's Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. Those little douchebags. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to watch it. And then I was like, oh, no, I am going to watch it because I want to see what Tarantino's doing. And yeah, so what are your initial thoughts? You can spoil a little bit of it.
I'm not going to spoil any of it, but I hated it.
Really? Really?
Wait, you didn't let me finish.
Okay.
And then I loved it. And then I hated it. And then I loved it. It was like this thing where I'm like, what the hell am I watching? And then, but like I couldn't get, tear my eyes away,
He's such a douchebag, but like, you don't know. You can't, again, it's Ubik, right? Like there are moments you're like in the wrong. Okay. Oh yeah. So here's Perfume Nationalist's recommended Angel by Terry Mugler. I'm going to spray some of this in the air right now. Just to, so this is actually, it's unisex, really. Oh. It smells like. Like there are times. Oh my gosh, there are times it's just like enchanting. You're like, this is the sexiest thing I've ever smelled. And then they're like, oh my god. But I think that's what Ubik can be sometimes. Like Tarantino in the right mood and the right frame of mind, I feel like is Ubik. Like I will never give up on that scene of Pulp Fiction where Bruce Willis, that Steadicam shot, that's one of my favorite Steadicam shots in all of cinema. Like you can keep the True Detective one or in the all of Birdman. Oh golly, just burn that dumb movie in effigy, please. I hate that movie. So
I've heard you say that.
Oh golly, I hate it. But that scene where Bruce Willis is walking and all the sound design in that scene is just, it just puts you there where he's going to go back to get the watch, and just the whole way this scene plays out is just too fun. It's Ubik. And so I think there are times where, again, one man's Ubik is another man's cipher steak, is another man's blue pill.
I didn't totally get Ubik until you just with the cologne. Cologne is so much Ubik.
Yes, definitely. And it wasn't.
I didn't get that connection last week.
Dude, like listen to that podcast. So the thing that really won me over to the Perfume Nationalists podcast, I was listening to this episode, and I think they were talking. I can't remember. It was one of the first two episodes I listened to. I think they were talking about Bronze Age Pervert. Have you interacted with any of his stuff yet?
No.
Oh man, Bronze Age Pervert. He's a Twitter personality. No. Absolutely interesting character. So, but what they talked, I didn't realize, like so much of what we interpret on the internet, we take at face value. And it wasn't until Jack was talking about Bronze Age Pervert that I realized that it's performance art. Like he's writing in a character's voice. He's writing in the whoever this guy is. Bronze Age is right. All of his online persona, like you can go back and find comments he made on people's blogs years ago, years before he had his Twitter account, and it's in the same voice. It's in this weird like.
Well, that's like Froggy Fresh. Do you know who Froggy Fresh is?
He used to be Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme, right. Yeah. Like he pretended to be this like, probably autistic young man, who was like rapping about his favorite things, and everybody thought he was mentally a little slow,
He was kind of like a Christian. Wasn't his character like a Christian kind of kid?
No, but he was like kind of
clean.
Do-gooder.
Yeah.
Clean do-gooder. Yeah.
Right.
And it's fascinating to watch him now. Like he's totally abandoned that, and he's just trying to be himself.
Well, and that's one of the things that Peter Thiel and Eric Weinstein brought up in that episode of The Portal. They were talking about K-fob and how everything is just so much is K-fob, so much is WWE. And I started realizing when I went through a period there where I get, I'm taking giant shit on rap music all the time now. But when I started to understand it a little better, I started realizing that hip hop in a way is like WWE in our current, it's like it's a persona that people put on, and it's all K-fob. to a certain degree. And so when you see things like that, yeah, it can kind of imbue it with more meaning, I think. But anyways, listening to that episode of the Perfume Nationals, like he made me think about that, like that people can be playing characters all the time. They're method acting as Twitter personalities. They're method acting as YouTubers or whatever. They're never out of character when they're. It's that scene in The Prestige. You know, the guy who does the magic trip, the old Chinese guy. He's always in character as this weak, feeble old man. So this has been around long time, and the fact that we are so dumb sometimes we take everything at face value. That, you know, Trump is the Antichrist. Like, it's K-fob, man. Like, he's even his Twitter thing he's playing a part, and politicians have been doing this crap forever. Like, you didn't need technology to do this junk.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was going back and watching your old vlogs. I always, that one vlog where you have the little animation, you talk about the underwater thing. Anyways, that's always been my favorite thing you've ever done.
Sort of the first surfing violence vlog. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I was like, why did I love this so much? And I think it's because you're playing kind of a role. Like, you were, you know, it wasn't. I was like, what? This is so different than. This is not today's Ford, you know. But like, what is so magical about it? And I think it's because you were playing a role, you know.
Right.
And it was this fun little, you know, I don't know.
It was definitely the happier side of, like my friend Christian said that about some of my vlogs. I was like, well, it's not you. And I was like, what? It's not me, really? Like, I thought it was me. Like, and that's part of the problem with this online persona stuff. You can start to method act so much that you forget, like, even who you are. And I think that's why it does like shipwreck many a person's career and many a person's life. I mean, you look at like the rise and fall of some of these big YouTube personalities, like Toby Turner. I was there from almost the beginning of his rise to fame, and, you know, seeing his crash and burn, you know, as a side effect of Me Too. It's devastating to see. And I go back and watch some of my vlogs from India, and I'm like, I don't know that guy. I kind of hate him. Like, so it's weird. Like, there's certain artificiality that starts working its way.
But see, I work with young men who are on the autistic spectrum, right? Who don't know how to do a persona, who don't know how to act in a persona, and so I see on a regular basis how important a persona is, how important. So I guess I don't want to just throw it out.
Right. Well, and that's what I think we need to get to, is this more dynamic, improvisational utilization of different personas and different strategies that work in different times. Not to just turn our noses up at them because it's like, oh, well, that's what the dorks, you know, that's what dorky boomers did, or that's what dorky Gen Xers did. Like, oh, those people are fake. It's like, well, yeah, we're all fake. We're all putting up some kind of affectation. Nobody, like, I've noticed over the years that my accent has changed. Like, I've gotten some Chicago, like, hard T's into my dialect, into the way that I pronounce things, just in certain things. Like, and like laugh. If I listen to my laugh from 10 years ago, like, we imprint on things that, or on speech patterns or cultural things that, like, we thought that was funny, and so then we start laughing like that. Like, I think, like, Rogan's laugh has worked its way into my laugh at certain points. So, all that. So I'm just like, you're right. We need to have a way to interact with people as they are. And so refusing to engage, that's kind of what gets back to that whole point about refusing to engage makes you into this sort of bratty, like, mind heisting sociopath that's just trying to rule the world through thought. And that's what these villains are in these stories we've been talking about, like Ubik. So you have to have a social interaction, right? And not all of that is going to be like uniquely you, quote unquote. But I think the real goal with this podcast is for us all to be able to find out. I do think that human beings are unique. It's to find out a way for our uniqueness to be able to plug into these different facets of what it means to be a person, a functioning member of society, so that we're not all just like wearing the same uniform. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, remember when you talked about Barack Obama and his cross culture, the way he spoke Hindu or something, and how he really embodied it. I think there's sort of the same thing when we talk about this. It's a communication. It's a form of communication, and I feel like we have to be able to get in other people's spaces, to embody their culture.
Yes. So the interesting thing about Obama, I think back then I defended him. There was this time he did a Happy Diwali. It's just one of these stock things. He recorded a video. I was in India at that time, I think, or maybe right before going to India.
You were in India, yeah.
And he recorded this Happy Diwali to the Indians living in America, Hindus living in America. And the way he did it was culturally aware, I guess. It wasn't just kind of hackneyed. It didn't feel so at the time to me. But since then, I have just developed this I've almost developed this, what is the word? What is that where you get the reaction in your throat, where you want to throw up?
Guttural?
Gag reflex. Yeah. I've developed this gag reflex to politicians who are sucking up, in my opinion. And so like I've been able to see through what normally would appeal to me before as like heartfelt, and I just see it as marketing. So I was discussing this with Melissa yesterday about Joe Rogan and how he can have like Maynard Keenan from Tool on his podcast, who's definitely more of a leftist, but very creative capitalist. I mean, he's made a lot of money on his music. But he can have someone like that on. He can have Bernie Sanders on, but he can also have Alex Jones on. And I think he's found this. He to me is a better embodiment of that across the aisle sort of attitude where I feel like he's not just putting on airs. I feel like he's doing it not just to make money, but he's making money, but he embodies it more realistically, and it doesn't feel as cynical. Yes, it doesn't feel as cynical. And I feel like politics, because it's so one or the other, it ends up being more like painful. I don't know. It feels more cynical. Whereas when you have a more broad market of ideas, there's less pressure for Joe to conform. That he's not going to quit cussing because it hurt somebody's feelings or whatever. He's still Joe.
Yeah.
Going back to you, so you mentioned Ubik and the Angel spray. So the reason I brought up Perfume Nationalist, because I got that because of them, because of their podcast. There was an episode where he just like made me realize something that I had never up until that point understood. I might have mentioned it before. He was talking about how Ayn Rand and the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. I think he was talking about the Fountainhead, or maybe it was Atlas Shrugged. He was saying, people read it wrong, and they read Ayn Rand like she's a philosopher, which she is, but her fiction stories are soap operas. And as soon as I understood that, I was like, oh, it makes so much sense. I hated The Fountainhead because I was reading it like a philosophical treatise. I was expecting it to be Moby Dick, but that wasn't what she was writing for. She was writing for like the Knots Landing audience, and that happens to be, that's the soundtrack for the introduction to the Perfume Nationalist is the Knots Landing soundtrack. It's one of his favorite shows of all time. And it's like then it's like it all clicked for me. It was like when I was in India, I could appreciate Bollywood movies, and I appreciated them for going over. Like once you understand what the genre is and the format and style, then you can appreciate the art that goes into it. But if you stumble at the cultural wrapping and say the cultural wrapping is garbage, well, you're never going to get anything out of it, right? And so I think that that's the thing that we're trying to get at here. Like, you can incarnate as a filmmaker and still make stuff that's not garbage. You know, it's the garbage doesn't, the kipple doesn't drive out all the Ubik. You know, so
it's so interesting though that the idea of perfume. I was just thinking the other day, instead of cleaning my room, I sprayed cologne, and it made me feel so much better about my room. Nothing changed except it smelled better.
But sometimes you need the honey, you know, Jonathan and the honey. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes you need it. Sometimes you need the Ubik. And that's the thing I keep coming back to. When the more depressed we get, just please don't die. You know,
Yeah.
like just keep using the Ubik if you need to. Just don't die.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing how much a little cologne can help that, just somebody's perspective on life,
Right.
you know, and it can lead to, like, you know, it's not that we're not just one thing, like you always say, and we're not just stuck in one moment. We use a little cologne, we feel a little bit better, you know, we take a shower, we clean the room, you know, there's a procession, and it all gets started with just a little bit more optimism.
Yeah, and I think that that's where I really want to go. And this is something, there was a Twitter user I talked to for a while there, Mimetic Value. It's taking a bit of a break, but we had this conversation about trying to figure out our algorithm. Basically, what is the custom-made algorithm for me that's going to help keep me from getting into these little feedback loops that is going to actually make me have a more constructive and productive life. And it's not, you really can't use an app or a diet or something else made by someone else, because they cannot tailor make it to you. So I've been trying to figure that out since I came back from it. Well, actually, before I came back from India, I was trying to figure out, like, how can I, in this world of ever increasing noise and ever increasing responsibility and learning to keep up with everything, man, there's just so much stuff to learn, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can we make this invigorating so that it isn't just daunting and you just want to sit there and give up? And yeah, I think like you said, if we can have some of that optimism, we just get to that point and incrementally move it. So the way I'm trying to describe it to myself, what I believe is this: I believe that we are in a form of commodified consumerism that cannot be fixed until we go backwards and reclaim some things, fix some things in the foundation of our society that went wrong before capitalism ever really came into understanding of what it was. So I'm reading Principles of Economics by Carl Menger, pretty much the original textbook for Austrian economics. And I mean, I literally read 2 pages and then I start writing. Like, I can't read more. It's just so dense. All of communism's complaints are pretty much asked and answered in this book. And if they weren't answered by this one, then they were answered by Mises just less than 50 years later or so. Well, maybe a little longer than that. But what I'm finding as I'm reading this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what a capitalist, like this kind of capitalist, like what a capitalist economist means by capitalism. And it has to do with a misunderstanding of what a consumer good is and what a higher order good is. So a higher order good is something that you use to make a consumer good. So if you're making bread, you need your wheat, and if you have you have wheat, you have to have another higher order good. You have to have like something to grind that up. So there's all sorts of higher order goods that go into this first order good, the consumer good that you're going to buy, the end product. Okay. So he says there's 2 problems. Well, I mean, there's so many problems, but one of the problems is people assuming they know what their good is. They assume they know what they need. And he says from the beginning, snake oil is not a consumer good because it's not actually, he doesn't go this far to say this, but it's not actually good for them. It's not real. It's a lie. It's a placebo. It's worse than a placebo. It's the drug that you got, but it's been cut with like something that's with strychnine. Mm-hmm. So it's not a good. It's a lie. Yep. And so if you allow that into the capital system, it's effed up from the beginning. So that's the first problem. The second problem is misunderstanding of what the higher order goods are. So he starts saying that higher order goods include the services like that are used. So the labor that goes into the work, maybe consulting to somebody else, like a consulting for someone else. But the problem is you can have snake oil insinuated into the higher order goods too. So many industries are basically snake oil industries, where they're just insurance fraud rackets. They're rent seekers. They're people who are gaming the system, and they really don't care that they're actually adding drag to the system. All they care about is that they're making a lot of money, making people's lives harder. So those are old things, as old as humankind. Capitalism did not invent snake oil. You didn't need a machine to have snake oil. The reason we call it snake oil, I'm not really sure, but it is kind of interesting that the first case of snake oil in Christian and Jewish religion is the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil presented by a serpent. So it's this.
True.
It's this thing that it's like, oh, and we're still falling for this shit. We talk about how like, oh, we're so advanced, those stupid religious people. Well, in the first 3 chapters of the Judeo and Christian Bible, the first 3 chapters, the thing we fall for every day, the Monster energy drink, whatever, like the Brawndo that we put into our body to keep us going because we can't live without it, and we can't become God without this stupid thing that we know is not good for us. And these Dr. Oz miracle pills, we're all falling for this stuff.
Yeah.
So like that, if you take that out of the equation, then you can start to figure out what this is. So I've said that we don't even know what capitalism is because we've never gotten there. As soon as we started having the machines of industry and all these other things that fed into capitalism as a system to be used, we threw in snake oil into all areas and corruption. And so the word that he uses, the term that he uses, provident activity, the idea that you need to have prudent people making decisions about what is actually needed, what is actually a good, what is actually useful, what is actually good stewardship. If you have providence in that process, then you can actually get to capitalism. But we're not in that. What we have now is, and I think the best way that I can describe it, I've said, speculative security. I think that's one aspect of it. But last week, I think the best way to put it is the consumer as commodity. Once you make the consumer as part of the capital good of higher order, or the end good itself, once people become the things over which we bid, not just we are the currency and we are the consumer goods, like and we're the oil that we the end user. If the consumer is sovereign, we have been. And that's what capitalism needs. Like the consumer is sovereign. The person at the end is the one who says, you know what, this isn't good enough. I need a better product. Well, then the market is supposed to adapt to that and say, yes, you do. You're right. We serve you. But the system has found a way to make us not just the end user, but the oil that makes the machine work.
Yeah, well, it's because the Christmas
cathedral
is it's just too big. I think about insurance, and how divorced from our product we actually are. Everything has to be filtered through the Christmas cathedral. It's like this big machine. You're like, you get this little gumdrop at the end, and you put your whole life at the at the beginning of it, and you can't say, oh, this doesn't work for me, because you don't know where the hell it came from. You can't. Who do you tell?
Yeah.
Who do you go say, like, hey, yeah, there is something about capitalism.
If you're Karen trying to speak to the manager, what manager are you going to speak to?
Yeah.
Like they're reporting to somebody else. They're reporting to a stockholder. That stockholder is reporting to his
But it's not even the stock. It's like Google. Like, who the hell do you talk to Google? Like, what's the Google phone number? You know, I hear that. Like my boss is like, call Google. I'm like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, no, there's no, like, as a YouTuber, you're like, okay, this has been copyright striked. Who do I talk? No, you don't talk. You talk to the bot, you know, and the bot is like, does not compute. It's just like that scene in Ubik. It's like, I'm sorry, you're taking my hinges off. You are going to be reported to my other bot that is going to forcibly remove you and put you in a colony.
It's the same thing.
So,
yeah.
So here's my idea of how we get to getting capitalism as it should be. And capitalism is not the end goal. It's a tool to be used along with so many other things that we have learned. Yeah. Art, science, music. I mean, all these human accomplishments that are magnificent. So it's a human accomplishment that is magnificent, but it is not the end. It is a means, and it's just one of many. So in order to get to that, we need, I'm calling it providentialism. We need to be provident in our activity, in our plans, in our science, in our art. We need to make more prudent decisions. And so in order to do that, we can't, and this goes back to why JBP is a great starting point. You got to start cleaning stuff up at the ground level, what is around you, instead of trying to clean up the White House when you don't even know how to balance your own checkbook. And that's what we have. We got a bunch of people in Congress that can't balance their own checkbook, but then so they just spend money the way that they spend the credit, It's like, well, they haven't figured out how to handle their own finances, but they're going to go and tell everyone else how to handle theirs. So providentialism, just figuring out how to better manage the resources available to us and be more provident in our activity with those, instead of being reactive, passive, acquiescent consumers. So if we move out of the consumption as what it means to exist into providence as what it means to exist, and then move into the next stage, which I'm calling incrementalism, we have to move one tiny step at a time. And he brings this up. He's like, if you plant a forest, like say you plant a bunch of trees, why are you doing that? You're not going to yield the benefits of that. That's going to be your kids are going to get the fruit of that forest. And he's saying that's what a capitalist not just the factory. It's the person who can think. Well, you don't have to have the factory to be a capitalist. You really do not.
It's true.
You can be, and this is where crop rotation, all this sort of stuff comes from. It's planning for the future to have a not zero-sum game, but a bountiful produce years in the future, instead of trying to get a golden parachute next week. So we have to get providence, then we have to have an incremental mindset of just slow change over time, not trying to win the lottery, not trying to win the viral race to the top on YouTube or whatever, just slow change over time. Then I think we can figure out how to manage capitalism properly in a way that it doesn't strip mine.
Well, yeah, and it's a change of perspective. Instead of saying, well, I'm going to engage in capitalism by buying something on Facebook Market, instead you say, I'm going to go meet my neighbor. I'm going to strike up a conversation with my neighbor, and with the intention that one day I will have something that he needs, and he will have something that I need, and we can help each other. And because there's so many times where I think, the cure is going to be on Facebook. It's going to be social media. I'm going to be able to trade. No, I don't even know who my freaking neighbor is.
Right. Well, and I think that's why we need both and, right? We need more interaction at the local social level, wherever we're at, and we need to utilize these tools on the internet well. Like just not worship them as the end all be all. Maybe use them as a crutch when we're in a tight spot, but to leverage them for the technological boon that they are, because we wouldn't have been able to do so much of this stuff before. And it's just like discovering the Perfume National. It's like, I'm really thankful. And he's frustrated because he's working a crappy job that he doesn't like, and we're all frustrated because we're like, we see a bigger picture, but we don't know how to make that real in the real world. But in the meantime, we still can connect with other people all the way across the world that are like having similar struggles. And eventually, I think we can So are we going to, overthrow the ruling class or whatever? No. But the point is, if we can get to the point where we can make our own Ubik, and I think some of this is happening. I mean, for them, they've been Ubik to me. Like this has been, yeah, it smells good now. All right, I'll hit chat. Any other thoughts you want to throw out there?
Just one last thought about cool.
Okay.
And it's a thought I haven't developed it, but there's this American cool that started, like you said, with the cool cowboy, but then the cowboy changed, and it. So yesterday I was listening to a podcast. It was a fantasy football podcast, but I love it because there's a lot more cultural interaction. And so this one guy was saying he loved Baker Mayfield. So this cocky. He loved this cocky quarterback,
right?
And he believed that was success. That he was going to be successful because he was like this. The cockiness was confidence, and this other guy said, no, historically, it's those who get out over their skis. It's those who are cocky. It's that fail. But there's something though in America. There's something in those cowboys, I was thinking about this while I was watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. There's something about the cowboy where we've gotten away from admiring his coolness, his cool killerness, his like what you're saying, to admire his bad boyness.
Yeah, like we're not admiring the rugged cool. The rugged coolness under pressure.
We're not admiring the utility.
The utility.
Cool,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool as utility. That's good. Yeah.
Instead, we it's this confidence. I think it's this cockiness, and it's this thing I hate about Trump. I'm a big Trump follower, but I hate this like, oh, if you don't do this, you're weak. It's like show don't tell type. I miss the show don't tell.
Well, I think again a lot of that's K-fob. That's why I like him, because I think so much of that is just trying to get a reaction. Whereas there are times where it frustrates me is when I see like even JBP on Twitter. There are times where he'll say something and it reminds me of me, where he's trying to attack the Hydra by means of a tweet. And I do the same thing. I mean, I can't judge it because but using his pulpit kind of as this like, the left did this and it drives me crazy. And it's like, but who is that going to affect other than the people that already agree with you, And so, and then there's the time where he got in a fight with Nassim Taleb, and both of them, I just felt like it was catty. And it was like them trying to be cool, but it was like a beef, but it wasn't cool in the same way that Hamilton versus Burr was cool. Like they were ready like, no, okay, let's do it. Like, yeah, let's quit talking. Like, let's go out and have a duel right now. And I think we actually need to get to that. So I was surfing last week. We just haven't had waves in so long, so we're just all jockeying for position, trying to get away. And so I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna, in this one spot, I'm gonna be far enough out that I'm gonna catch just these ones that squeak through. Anyways, I think I'm finally found my spot. It's starting to break already, but it's not fully breaking. So I was just gonna catch the whitewater and see if it would reform. There was a guy right in front of me, Indian dude actually, a local guy, but. Indian ethnically, and he was right in front of me. I was like, I'm not going to be able to dodge around him. So I try to pull out, but the wave is caught me at this point, and so I can't stop. And so I ended up like intertwined with him, and I actually was stuck under his board. I was kind of so I got up and I apologized to him. He was like, no big deal, man. But it just occurred to me, there was a time when I was when I was younger, it was high school, I ran over this local guy, Jeremy Rocher, and he apparently he had a reputation that he didn't take any shit from anybody. And so I ran over his board and broke a fin off, and he was livid. He was so mad, and I was like, oh, I was so scared. I was like, oh, I'm sorry, man. No, I didn't know who he was. I just knew that he kind of had this reputation, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, dude. Yeah, you can have my fin. He's like, okay. And that was good. I was like, and I apologized to him all the more on the way out of the parking lot. He's like, nah, man, you hit my shit. I'm gonna get your shit. I was like, oh, okay. And later on, we were at a football game, and he walked by, and I was with this girl. I was like, yeah, that's the guy I ran over. She's like, that was Jeremy Welcher. You're looking at it like kill you, idiot. But the difference between these two interactions, like when I apologized to this dude, he's like, oh, no problem, man. It happens. And I just realized, like, we do that too much.
Yeah.
Like, no, I mean, this is dangerous. You can actually kill somebody on a surfboard. Like, you need to, like, what really needs to start happening is, like, you screw with somebody else. It happened one time. I blew a wave at Steamer Lane out in Santa Cruz. And so it was my wave. I had priority. So I called a guy off, but I blew the wave and I didn't make the takeoff. So when I paddled back out, the local guy was like, hey, man, you're penalized a wave because I would have had that wave if you hadn't taken it. So you're going to have to, even if you get priority with me next time, I'm taking it. I was like, oh, yep, yes, sir. So, like, we call that toxic masculinity now. But really what needs to happen, like, if I hit that guy in the head with my surfboard, we should go to the beach. He's like, okay, now I'm going to hit you in the head with your surfboard. Take it like a man. Like, that's what eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth means. It's not just, we've always interpreted that as a justice thing. No, I think it's a teaching thing. Because when you feel what it feels like to get your shit knocked out, then you're like, oh, then you think twice. It doesn't really, people are like, oh, you shouldn't spank kids. Like, whatever. One of the best lessons I got was from Brandon Rager when I lost my temper in round 3 or something like that because he caught me on the nose. And I just was like, wild shovel hooks like crazy. And then he just turtled through it, Mayweathered it. And then he comes up, and I got this on video too. I was wearing my GoPro. He's like, oh, now you're going to feel it. Now you're going to feel it. Nope, you can't sit down now. You can't sit. You did this yourself. And he's like, he was being nice. Like, he could have probably, unloaded on me. But he just forced me to breathe, to feel that pain of the recovery. Because that's the thing. It's like, oh, yeah, if I get you in my temper loss, you're in trouble. But if you outlast the temper loss, I'm dead.
Yeah, actually, the other day, my daughter was complaining about my son hitting. Now, my son got spanked, but it was too late. I said, like when I came home, I had to spank him because he hit my daughter, Dora. But I told Dora, I said, if he hits you, hit him back so he knows what it feels like. Like I don't want, like I just the idea of her just coming and tattling. In the moment, I just felt like Asher needs to know the consequences of hitting somebody, especially somebody. His sister's a lot bigger than him. She needs to hit him,
right? To feel the effects of it. It's not just, and it's not just because it's a justice thing. We need to have eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. No, it's like so that you know how bad it hurt them.
It's reality.
And so that you feel that it's not just divorce. Yeah, there's something that wakes you up in that moment. And so, like, when I got caught with one of his right crosses one time, because, there was one week I caught him, and I think the next week he's like, all right, Ford needs to feel some of this. So he caught me with one cross, and I got it on video. Like, my GoPro's like here, and then it's like 120 degrees this way. I'm like, like the Looney Tunes thing. And once you feel that, you're like, okay, I'm a little more humble now. Thank you, sir. You talk a lot of crap until you take it. And yet, you're right, like, about the cool. There's some, it's like watching UFC, Conor's going to come back. Like, I talk about a bunch of K-Fob, Conor McGregor. You got all these guys, Nate Diaz. Like, I really like the Diaz brothers, but they're just so cocky and they just talk so much crap. But at the same time, they'll take a punch and they'll nod. Like, oh, that was a good one. Like, they don't, there's some kind of honor among cockiness there. That's a lot more cool to me than a person who acts like they're, a badass in a movie, with a bunch of help to make them look badass. Anyway, some miscellaneous thoughts, but yeah, feel the pain. I feel, just bleed a bit, and when you do it, I think we forget just how much physical pain actually hurts. And it's good. It's there to to almost serve as a red flag. You know, like maybe don't want to wander into this territory. Okay.
Dude, Heidel is going crazy.
You said some interesting stuff. I'll hit some of the Viagra is taken best taken with cocaine. Janis Joplin, best rapper ever. You know, I really have not caught up with Janis Joplin after all these years. Is that another heresy, Judah? That I know nothing about Janis Joplin.
I don't know much about her.
Where should we start, Heidel, with Janis Joplin? Ford, you should have balloons and a giraffe as your wall coverings. It will give us hope. Yeah, I do need something better than the cardboard boxes behind me now.
Oh, is this your new spot?
No, it's still we're still in the.
I can't.
Yeah, it's just all.
I actually think. I can't think of his name. Who's the old guy who used to? Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man. Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is the original rapper. If you listen to some of his songs,
Subterranean Homesick Blues. Subterranean Homesick Blues is definitely rap. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, actually, you know what the real original rap is? Here, I'll just put it in. I do what I want. I'm not even monetized on YouTube. I do what I want. No, I demonetize. So I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back eventually. I am going to remonetize YouTube, but in the meantime, we can watch stuff like this together. Hold on, let me just see if I can bring this up. Together forever. I am the very model. I'm just going to play it. I can't get up. Guys, Grammarly. This part of the podcast brought to you by Grammarly. The Pirates of Penzance, Gilbert and Sullivan. Here you go. Okay, listen to this. This guy's got some flow. Okay, what? I don't know when it starts. Any second now. Here we go. Life information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England, and I quote the Pikes historical from Marathon to Waterloo in order categorical. Yeah, so keep talking cultural appropriation, whatever. Gilbert and Sullivan, we're all culturally appropriating them. Huh? How about that? Yeah.
I can't help but think, that's not a Bugs Bunny, right? But
well, and actually, if you really think about it, the Italians are probably the first to do it, because there's some of those operas. There's all kinds of tongue twisters in those operas. La Donna Mobile. I'm pretty sure some of them have these little scat singy sort of stuff in the middle of some of these operas. So there you go. Okay, that was a random tangent. Heidel says it's all Heidel from here on out. All Americans with birth certificates are commodity since the 1930s. That's an interesting thought. Why since the 30s? What happened in the 30s?
I've got a friend that talks about this all the time. Apparently, the U.S. government owns us.
Oh, is that
you can emancipate yourself by, according to my friend, by you have to buy out your shares. I don't know. It's complicated. Heidel could tell us.
Ford crop rotation is hurting the soil with depleting the resources at an alarming rate since 1994. Oh, well, I think you probably have to do it in a less industrial sense, for sure. Oh, so your volume's been too low. Sorry about that. It's weird because on my computer his volume's high, and so I have to turn it down here. So I'm sorry. Shoot, I'm gonna have to do audio mixing it for the podcast. Dadgummit.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. It's my fault for having it down.
I should have checked on it.
believe you snorted too much saffron. Most likely. Sammy Davis Jr.'s first rap. I went surfing at Cloud 9. The water smelled like kimchi and dried fish. Wait a minute. You went surfing at Cloud 9? You're a surfer? Who are you?
Who
are you? How do you even know what Cloud 9 is?
He called me white man, so...
How do you know what Cloud 9 is, Heidel? Hey, Jim the Frog, welcome. We're about to head out. What is that little doohickey? What is this? It looks like a vine. Like a little vine thing. Interesting.
It's a flower. What are you talking about?
Oh, it's a flower. I see it. No, I see it on the YouTube. Rose. No, but on the D Live one, it came through as like a little more cartoonified. But on YouTube, it looks like I see it. I travel Philippines many times a year. No way, man. Cloud 9 is it was like one of the original, dream surf spot destinations, man. Yeah. I didn't even know where it was, to be honest.
Does it smell like kimchi?
It probably does. Hey, do you know? Hello there. Do you... The Obi-Wan meme. Hello there. Hello there. I think we should make that into some. Well, I'm sure it's been memed like a bajillion times by now. Does it smell like kimchi? That's an interesting thought. You know what? Cloud 9 actually featured in that song that I wrote. Was the Stuck in the Rip. That's part of it. Like he's surfing at Cloud 9. But I forgot where Cloud 9 was. I think I imagined it like it was Indonesia, not Philippines. Whoops. But yeah, 12-foot ground swell from the cyclone, offshore winds and sun in the sky. Should have brought a brand new leash now. Anyways, he's surfing Cloud 9 and gets his leash broken, and then he's stuck in the rip and he's about to die. So he's having this fever stream of consciousness dream. Have you surfed Cloud 9? Heidel? What's it like? My dream wave is J-Bay. I got to go to South Africa to surf J-Bay. That's the ultimate dream. I met Rick Howard before he was the original to find surfing in PHP. No way. Dude, I need to have you on the podcast. That's why I don't even know who Rick Howard is. Rick Howard. I'm on the wrong window.
You don't know Rick Howard, dude?
Dude, I don't know who Rick Howard did. Rick Howard.
Come on, Howard.
Canadian professional skateboarders, part of Girl Skateboarders, and founded the Lakai Limited Footwear with professional skateboarder Mike Carroll. Morning waves at Cloud 9. I bet. Dude. Actually, so one of the guys, a local legend surfer, Tate, he was out there this week, and so he told me that we're getting a skate park. Surprisingly, Panama City Beach is getting a skate park. So I think he talked to me, just hearing him talk about skating, because my form is just so bad, dude. It's just bad, and so I need to do some practice. And there's no way to practice around here because the surf's flat for 95% of the time.
Is your form bad because of your posture?
Yeah, it's my posture, and it's also my imagination. You know how me and you were talking about League of Legends one time, and you were like, the problem I have is I'm going to do something different. Everyone else is doing it this way. I'm going to be creative. So I've always done that with my surfing. And so now that I have a GoPro on my board and I see every movement, I was like, in my head, I was like, oh man, that's going to be some good footage, baby. And I get back to the beach and I'm like, oh God, what an idiot. I really, literally, my friend used to make fun of me. He's like, you look like an orangutan with a broken chicken wing that's on meth and or on cocaine or something. It's like, and no, I literally look like that. I'm I got my facial expression gets even more over the top. It's like, it's not cool, okay? I do not look cool when I want to surf. Now, to an uninitiated, I might look a little bit cool, but I can only imagine when a pro surf's like, oh man, I just like this. frenetic
Lean
bug.
into it. Lean into it.
I need to
Well,
lean into it. Yeah.
the reason I ask is because a friend of mine, as Joe Rhodes, he was saying, because like I have bad posture too, and like he was saying that that working, like people forget to work on their back muscles, and that a lot of times, like as a man, we focus so much on the front that it kind of pulls us in like this, and that I don't know. I've just been rediscovering stretching and
Right.
working on back muscles.
Well, that's one of the first parts of JBP's book, 12 Rules for Life, is keep your shoulders back. And you got those things now, those little straps to help you like keep your posture. And it's true. Like when I look at myself surfing, I'm always hunched over. I'm always like a little hobbit. You got to.
It might just be that you need to work on your back muscles.
Probably so. Does the shoulder straps help? I don't know. I mean, it could be. Is it snake oil or is it Ubik? We could find out. No, I cannot fund your $3,200 trip to where were you wanting to go? Amazon or something?
No, it's like a mountain. What is it?
Oh, it was mountain. Mount Kilimanjaro. I've been to Kilimanjaro, actually. Surf Snapper Rocks, dude. Snapper Rocks is the dream. It was shitty, but you probably caught it on a bad day. Right? Like Snapper Rocks is the dream, man. I gotta have rights, Heidel. I gotta have rights. No lefts for me. Only rights. Front side. Or else. All right.
What's going on?
Okay. Oh, we'll talk about it later, probably. All right, so I think that's probably it.
All right.
Fluid motion, smoke a joint before surfing. It makes the ride enjoyable. That is true. I know so many surfers that smoke better high.
Smoke better high.
Smoke better. Surf better high. Sorry. But yeah, it's true. There's a real the fluid, and that's my problem. Is I'm always trying. I'm getting ahead of myself, like everything I do in life. Like I'm looking way down the line when I should have just be thinking about just drop in, take a deep breath, back up. Take this slow.
You've revolutionized my idea of cool, though. Thank you. I love this idea of the cool cowboy.
I think that's what we need. We need coolness that's not trying to be cool. It's just being. And this revelation hit me while I was surfing last week. I was thinking of how The Right Stuff in that movie. It's all about this. The Right Stuff is good, that movie, because it's talking about how Chuck Yeager is the real cool dude. He's the one with the real right stuff. And what being cool is doing it even when no one else is watching.
Yeah. Ooh.
That's what it means.
Yeah.
Your form doesn't change, your tone doesn't change, your tenor doesn't change. You're the same person when no camera is rolling. And the problem is, so much of my life, like when I take a shower since I was like 7 years old, I was always imagining myself playing Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto in E minor. I'm always imagining myself being on stage in front of people. So I've had to like exercise this demon of performative cool. I'm 38, 30 years later, I'm still trying to get this method acted cool out of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that we have to realize that whatever we've seen on the big screen is fake. It's performative. And little screen too.
Yeah.
It is really like we've become possessed by this parasite of coolness. And we need to get to the point of just realizing whether anyone or not is watching or not, it's the utility of cool is what matters. The utility.
Yeah.
That's
it. The utility of cool.
Being on stage showering? No, I mean, when I'm in the shower, I'm No, I've been cocky, but I've never been.
Half an hour shower with men.
I've never been that cocky. Like, I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, no, thanks. I don't want that anywhere. You're just advanced. Okay. All right. Godspeed.
Okay.
Until next time, keep it creative, cross-cultural, constructive. We'll see you next week. Maybe sooner. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a little, random stream sometime. Godspeed.